It'll probably be live.
I'll say that. It's a little rough.
Okay. Okay.
You gotta come see it.
It'll probably be live.
I'll say that. And
All right.
they're literally
Well,
getting paper just like lay out on shelf to see if they can run like fully when that is just enough. It will be a little tight and it won't be as good. That's what their plan is, so that way that they never lose operation. They only have operation for like a week.
It's probably up and running now, Mayor.
Okay. Welcome to the January 15th, 2025 North Logan City Council meeting. We don't have to excuse anyone today. We will start with our opening ceremony. We have this celebrity that sometimes comes into town that will be leading us in the pledge, and then Emily will
Sounds
say
like
the prayer.
Joni, you're on pledge. Audience, please repeat or stand and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee tonight for the beautiful city that we live in. We thank Thee for the hardworking staff, and we ask Thee to help us as we go through the decisions of our city, that we can make wise ones and that we can have a good discussion. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right, thanks, you too. I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Emily, second by Buzzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we have our December 11th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. I've seen some proposals on changes for that. Any other ones that haven't been sent in? Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to accept these minutes.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Buzzy,
Second.
second by Kenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to recognition of an exemplary staff member. Tonight, that is Mason Merrill from the Streets Department. He was nominated by Ryan Campbell, who says, Mason Merrill from the Streets Department jumped into action, helping us on a Friday afternoon to do a burial. He was instrumental in the backfill process. Mason has a great attitude and willingness to help us at the cemetery. I'll add that Mason is one of North Logan's own and has the best mom around. So we're so grateful to have Mason working for us and really appreciate his service for the city. So please join me in giving him a hand of applause. Okay, let's see, let's go to follow up on issues from previous meetings. Alan?
There are no items
Okay.
that I'm aware of, and we can do action items after that.
Okay, I had a really brilliant idea this week that maybe we could have our public safety officials give their reports at the beginning of the meeting to save them the hassle of sitting through it. Okay, fine, it was Mark.
This
Mark
place is falling apart.
Hansi. It's a really great idea.
Why have we been doing it for so long?
Now I know I've been missing.
Well, we just like all the time we can get with our chief. So we'll be doing that at the beginning of the meeting. Chief Thompson, do you want to start us off?
Such patience.
We can hear you.
Well, but Marie needs it.
Recording.
All the people. I'm sorry, people. Sorry.
I bet there's 3 on the stream. One is the automated bot that records it, and then
Oh, thank you. Sorry. But there are things within the city we actually I like being educated on too, so it's great. But thank you, very thoughtful. So just take a couple minutes. I know you received the December report. I actually kind of added just some I think some good things to watch within North Logan City as we kind of watch the growth. Obviously, we'd already kind of projected we were probably going to be between 10 and 12% increase in calls. It looks like we settled in about 8%. December was a little quieter, which was nice. That means less people were probably going to the hospital or or calling us for service. The thing I wanted to mention real quick would be in terms of call volume, what that translates into, those 904 calls, there were 1,718 unit responses, which means a combination of an engine and a rescue that's two-handed. Additionally, most calls, 715 of those, the engine and the rescue that's located here in North Logan handled. The thing I like to point out in terms of what I think is one of the significant things of the collaboration and with the merger of the fire department, 87 times last year, the next closest rescue located in Logan up by the university actually responded into North Logan to cover a next call out to ensure that there was no loss of EMS time or response there. So that's always a good thing to point out. And, I truly feel we try to deliver the same service here in Zone 12, we call it, in North Logan, as we do in 7 or 71 or Providence. And so I just wanted to point a couple of those things out. Engine 71 came into North Logan 65 times last year, and the downtown rescue 28 times. So pretty significant depth. It gives you pretty much, that's 3 layers of coverage. So for the citizens here in the community in North Logan. Probably a couple of things not to disclose too much. Areas we're watching, hotspots. If you were to flip that over and look at the nature of calls, we kind of went through this with our EMS division before I came in. We had 119 responses last year to Pioneer Valley Lodge. That's a number that we like to say, hey, is there some education we could provide? Maybe not. Maybe there's nothing we changed there, but we were able to locate a couple places that we could probably do some work, maybe in public education or things like that. So we try to work. We'll try to work at on that throughout this next year with goals. And I really think, the state of, I think the fire department's solid. We're fully staffed right now. You have excellent professional service providers here within the city, quality captains, quality engineers. And so super proud that they're, serving here in this zone. Any questions about the latest report or things that I've pointed out there on that latest one?
Any questions from the council?
Oh, yeah. It's
And
pretty
Chief, maybe you
horrible.
can mention that you offered the services of Logan Fire.
Yeah, so how that goes is when there's an emergency like that, there's an activation regionally called the EMAC, and it looks for resources that could respond within like 12 hours. And so we did post an engine. We actually put the engine 121, which is our wildland interface engine that's located here in this zone. We put it up on the board, we call it, and to activate it, and they accepted that. But what the amazing thing is from Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Utah, there were so many people willing to help. They started in southern Utah and just moved north to build their task force. By the time they hit Salt Lake City, the task force was full from Utah. So it's amazing, like the level of response to their call for help. So they asked for them, they were gone the very next morning. Now that engine is still available and posted in case things break out again. As you know, in California, they are expecting more Santa Ana winds, but like I was talking to Councilman Hance, prior, and with 100-mile-an-hour winds, I don't care how many firemen and how many engines you throw at it, it is very difficult to stop. And as you've seen, a lot of those fires ran right to the ocean. So the closest thing we probably have to that here, obviously, we sometimes will get those downslope winds, and we have had some significant fires in the valley with that. But the layout of the land is a little bit different. A lot of times we see those winds in the spring and the fall when those storms come through, and it's typically wet and snowy here when we do. So it's just horrific to see what's happened. But a wind-driven event is an event that I hope I never have to see that, because it's pretty horrific. So, but yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, and they are still available. They still may end up going. So,
All right. Well, thanks for representing us well.
thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chief. All right, Chief Goodrich.
Awesome, thank you. So we've had some really good news this week too that I wanted to share. First off, we've talked a little bit, or I have talked a little bit about Detective Curl being deployed. We got word yesterday that that has changed, and so he's not being deployed right now. It's kind of postponed for a little while. That's good news for the department and for having to try to figure out how to cover that that loss there. But he's not going, so it's good for us. With that, I wanted to move into some stats, our weekly stats, but then also stats for 2024. For this week's calls, we had 97 calls and 76 traffic stops. We also took the opportunity to do some fraud prevention training. We had about 40 individuals who wanted some training that we did a big presentation to. Detective Curl helped me with that. And he was also able to, he has made an effort to go around to the different elementaries and do an internet safety presentation to them on that. So we're starting to see some other outreach from that. There's an elementary in Smithfield, the same one, Sunrise Elementary, that I presented to last year. They want the same presentation or another one like it coming up in February. And so that is good as we get that information out to try to help the kids as well on that. Alan, if you could go to the other slide. So I gave you some two stats that I wanted to talk about. Our calls for service for 2024, where we ended up at versus 2023. So in 2024, we ended up with 5,874 calls for service. It's 154 more calls than what happened in 2023. And a call for service basically is when anybody calls into dispatch requesting an officer's help, or they report an emergency or an accident or a reckless driver. When they're calling 911, that information is logged in and sent out. And so that's what the 5,874 represent. As you look at the difference between the two, really in July of 2024, we started to see an increase where we had more calls that were coming in than in the previous year on that. So that was where our increase happened, is basically that second half of the year. And if you flip the page to the logged traffic stops on that, this one is significant from 2023 to 2024. So traffic stops, to kind of give you a little background on that, generally take about 15 minutes by the time the officer makes a stop, approaches, gets the ID, tells them the reason for the stop, comes back and fills out a warning or a citation, goes back up, delivers it, and comes back and clears that. It takes about 15 minutes. So this year we had an ending total of 3,780 log stops that went through dispatch versus in 2023, the 2,360. So it's an additional 1,420 stops. When you break that down by hours, it's an additional 355 hours that the community saw our police officers in their patrol car with the lights on out, and that visibility was present there. It's a significant increase from where we were the year before. So I put that on there so that you could see how good work the officers are doing. This year also, we had 5 months out of the year where we had more stops during those 5 months than what we did the previous 7 years on it. So some really, really good work there with our officers on that. Those were the two main things I wanted to see as some of the most visible data that's out there. Do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to see? Some of that is, so
Sorry.
ahead.
Is this increase because we have more police officers?
So some of it in 2023, we were down. We started to rebuild back in August. So in August, as you look at the numbers there, they start to go up with the traffic stops. However, the biggest increase that we're seeing, and the reason for it, is because of the change of culture, change of priorities, change of directives, change of what the officers are looking for. They're actively looking for the DUIs. They're out there making the stops. They're present in the school zones. They're walking through the schools. It's a change in direction from what was before.
And Chief is being modest that that's a change in culture because of Chief Goodrich, just really making that a priority and implementing just a really community-based policing. So,
And this is the full agency, right, including Hyde Park?
Yes.
Yeah, this is huge.
I think it's fantastic work, but I was pleased to present it to you, to kind of show you. There's always room for improvement, but we've done some good work this last year.
yeah,
thank
we
you.
appreciate it. Even anecdotally, I think it's great how often I'm seeing police officers out and about, even if it's sometimes to my chagrin. So, all right. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. Alan, you want to go over strategic directives and action items?
I came up with the genius idea to combine the two.
Oh, wow.
Mark was supposed to second that. So Mark's come up with several good ideas at this time.
Mark was gonna motion you get a raise.
As we go through this, though, I'll probably focus in kind of a more traditional time as I go through this, kind of the run of the mill, go through the action items. But in future meetings, because we are talking about strategic directives tonight, I won't go through it in the manner that we will go through in future meetings, where we focus on some key strategic directives and how those are translated over to our action items to accomplish those. So this meeting, I'll do the old run of the mill action items, and then we'll get to the strategic directives. So but case in point is these first items, we'll talk about these at the end of the meeting. We'll talk about some of our civic updates. And so I won't go over those at length, other than we are looking at some of our HR culture and other things that we're working on with our interns. They're doing a fantastic job. Jordan will give an update on water at the end of the meeting, so I won't go over that at length. Sewer, looking at a few items, with the council, we finalized some of the items for the bond. We're still working with the state that we have to finalize some of the construction items for that bond, but that'll be happening in the short term. Streets, obviously snow removal. While they haven't had big storms, they still have to go out and check and spread salt in what they call hot spots, or areas where there could be a slick spot, and so people can still get from point A to point B throughout the entire city. And in between that, they're helping other departments, they're servicing equipment, keeping it up and running. So it's been great this year. Stormwater, they've had several projects, including this piping of the deep gutter out here in front of the city offices. So they were instrumental in doing that. We waited several years to do that. And that'll enable us to have ADA access off of the road into the future kind of civic center area. So people can access the green space here around the community center. Jumping down through engineering, they're working on the 2850 North project, the 12th East project. We had a meeting this week for going over construction for the 2500 North 8th East roundabout with UDOT. That's one of 20 meetings we go to regularly. It's associated with the funding and the grant that we received. And so we're going through that. Parks will go over several things in the coming weeks. I don't want to go over at length. Bonneville Trail alignment, that's part of a RAPS study. So they completed that project, and associated with that, they'll go out and apply for a few grants. It's fantastic. They're reaching out to the state, and because of that feasibility study, which has kind of given a bad rap in the past. Why are we funding feasibility studies? This is going to enable the cities, North Logan, Hyde Park, Smithfield, and the county to receive funding. They're already well positioned to receive large amounts of this UORC funding from the state for that. And it'll probably start more on the portion from Hyde Park to Smithfield, where there isn't a trail at all right now. And they'll probably start with that low-hanging fruit. And then the next year probably move down to North Logan. And so that's fantastic for that portion. Several of the residents, we need to thank them for filling out kind of a support letter for that when we sent that out. Recreation, they have tons of things going on. Obviously basketball is up and running, but they're already taking registration for soccer and a few other events. We'll go over some other major events that are coming up at the end of the meeting. Just jumping down through, we'll talk about some of these strategic goals for cemetery. Community development, I won't go over that at length because Scott's got so many things going on right now with the general plan, with city center, but then also some other phases of subdivisions might be on the docket. The Village Springs that you already talked about, that's not another phase, but that subdivision. And then we'll see about Smiling H, another phase coming in potentially. Jumping down through, again, I'll go over events from the library and police and fire. I want to steal their fire. They already took care of that, so thanks to each of them. I went through that really quickly. We'll talk about strategic directives later on in the meeting. Are there any questions, though, about any specific item, department action items coming up?
Nope. Okay. Thanks a bunch, Alan. All right, let's move on to our action items. We will begin with a Public hearing to receive input on a proposed resolution to revise the fiscal year 2025 municipal budget. The city council may consider approval of the resolution following the public hearing. Alan, are you going to take us through the background of this and then we'll do the public hearing?
Yes, let me open this up, sorry. So I want to take credit for this as well. A genius idea to have just one single document that shows all of the revisions that are proposed instead of sifting through an entire massive budget. But that was Kenny's idea. So thanks to each of you for coming up with these ideas. When you go through this, it really provides clarity. These are just general rough notes in this document that you can go through. And what it is as we go through the budget, if we see that one, we don't have a line that we should have, if we maybe over or under budget, we can go through mid-year and do some revisions to just kind of do a course correct mid-year. It's not required, and sometimes we do let lines go over to show us at the end of the year that we're going over, we need to adjust for the next year. Or if we're really far under, we're not going to adjust it mid-year. We're going to let that stay really far under so that at the end of the year when we're preparing budgets for the following year, we'll drop those down. So back in the day, we would adjust it all the time, 2 or 3 revisions throughout the year. But it's more, this is intended to keep a budget that's more accurate or applicable to what the department heads are doing. But as you go through this, I mean, one of the changes proposed, emergency management, they do have a revenue line. And that's what that proposal is. The other ones are related to emergency management as well. As Sandy's geared up, our emergency response manager, she's really setting the tone for the entire valley. Literally all the other cities are coming to North Logan City to see how this is handled. And not just coming to the city for advice on how to handle this, they literally send people from their communities to the trainings that Sandy provides. And so this is fantastic. But along with that, there are a few lines that we had to create. So it's a little bit more clear. She just had one line beforehand, and that's not the best management to say every single dollar that you spend, no matter what it's applied to, is coming out of one line. And so this provides a little bit more clarity as to where the budget will go. They also came up with a genius idea because they do bring in some additional revenue that's just specific to CERT. That's the Community Emergency Response Team. That's a group of volunteers in North Logan City. I think we started as the only one in the valley, and I think there's 1 or 2 now that other communities that now have CERT teams. But they've done drills and everything else. They've done a fantastic job with everything they're doing. But they created a 501c3. So they'll go down and they'll help out with the fair, provide education, and the fair will actually pay them some money. And that money comes back into CERT, and so they use that to buy supplies through a 501c3. And so that's a minor modification there. Let's see. You guys use way too much candy.
Have we thought about maybe like reining that in just a smidge?
Oh, that's a
Buzzy, have we
double-edged
thought about
sword.
that?
If I,
What?
no, that's not all candy. It's,
Yeah, Buzzy and Emily, have we thought about reining that in at all?
yeah, there's a couple council members that went a little overboard. So, but it's,
It's
No
like
comment.
violence is the problem.
that's not all for that. That's a few other incidental items, miscellaneous items that's associated with the city council. But the bulk of it is going to that. So,
Breakdown of that so we can see how much candy we
yeah.
bought.
Oh, it's between $1,200 and $1,500 for that one event. So,
For all city candy, right?
yeah, it's for not only the city council, but like the youth city council, the royalty, you guys. But you're about 80% of it, Buzzy.
So and we're throwing it 10% at a time.
Literally 8 throws were done.
That's a slight adjustment. Anywho, this year,
I don't say these guys are throwing, I think they're shoveling.
Next year we're gonna be like this.
it's a win-win. You guys can determine how much you want to spend on that. So we'll move on from that item. But the economic development, this is related to GIS planning. This is a website that we actually have as a sub-website that we have to contract with, where they provide statistics and data that we can give to site selectors. And so this is a website, this is a startup for that website. And so there's a cost associated with that to get that up and running. It's on our economic development site, and it's another website that you click on. But it really helps site selectors when they're looking at North Logan City and they see businesses that are here. It has demographic data, it has some transportation data, and the key factors that they're looking for in making decisions about whether or not they should come and be in our city. And so that was the startup for that. That portion, something that we haven't had in the past. What we did in that one is we're actually probably going to shift. Perfect. Thanks, Mark. But this actually will probably shift money from other lines. So probably a revenue neutral shift within that department because we're not spending as much as we have out of the other lines in that department as we have in the past. So at the end of the year, we'll probably adjust those. The only other one is just some lobbyist fees. We haven't specified where those come out of. They've been coming out of different lines within water or sewer as they lobby for different funds for those departments. They've both been doing a fantastic job up to this point. Yes,
Can you explain Lincoln Schultz and Alex Tarbay for me?
they're the two lobbyists. So Lincoln Schultz focuses mainly on state and state funding, not solely, but that's his sole that's his primary focus. And so he's looking at direct appropriations and grants that the city can apply for and receive those funds. So case in point, he lined us up with a grant for $1 million for our sewer. Mayor filled that out. We received that grant.
He's paid for himself pretty well.
Oh yeah, he's paid for himself for several years to
good.
come.
Yeah.
Same with Alex Tarbett.
Thank you.
Alex is primarily focused on more on federal funding. So working with Congress and congressmen like Blake Moore, our congressman, who does a fantastic job and lining us up with funds. And the same story in that realm. So
And
it's been
Alan,
great.
is that all water and sewer related lobbying and that's why they come out of that line item?
Correct. And so up
Okay.
to this point, we primarily had them focusing on water and sewer. Now that could change slightly because they are dabbling and looking into maybe some potential roads funding and streets funding that's allocated. But for the past several years, the primary focus from the Natural Resource Department of the state and from the federal direct appropriations has been water and sewer. Water related to drought and conservation and storage is the main focus, which we line up very well for that. Sewer to help us with capacity and capacity issues. And those are the two kind of main areas we've been focusing on.
And trails this year is another one.
There's another one that would be a state focus that we're looking into. In the past, we also looked at federal funding for that as a fire break. Because there were fire funds associated with fire breaks where the Bonneville Shoreline Trail could function if it's built to a certain width as a fire break.
Okay, any other questions on, or Alan, were you finished with the going through?
The only other
adjustment?
one I just wanted to bring up is a code enforcement line revenue. We haven't had that in the past. And so we created a line. Again, code enforcement, we had to specify with several individuals who even asked, like, oh, is the city getting rich off of code enforcement? The answer is a definite no. Like, we are not getting rich. However, the financial penalties or other things, the thing that it creates is a immediate response. So people are cleaning up their yards, and that's what we want. That's the key thing. But in the rare case that we do have someone who has a fine and they have to pay it, we need it to go into a line. We just don't want it to go into miscellaneous in the city's budget. We want it to be categorized in a specific category. The rest of these items will probably, we're going to table those until we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year. There are things that we probably need to set up. We need a little bit more clarity on. Some of them we're still waiting on. And so that's the only reason we didn't push those through and add those to this proposed budget revision.
Yeah, and just another note on the code enforcement officer, it also frees up staff time, whether that's administrative staff or whether it's police staff in, having someone who's dedicated just to code enforcement. And I would say, I assume you guys have a similar experience, but most of the complaints that I get are related to the code enforcement officer's duties. So that's been a really great change in our city.
And to have someone give out 100+ letters and have nearly 100% success rate, I'd say it's a 99% success rate of having people correct those minor violations is incredible.
Yeah. Okay, I think what we'll do then is do the public hearing and then we can discuss as a council after that. So I'll read the rules for that. Before you begin, please state your name for the record, speak into the microphone, limit your statements to 3 minutes. You may not bank times to speak on behalf of others. Phrase your opinions in the form of statements, not questions. Address your comments to the council, not to the public. If in the future you have questions or need to discuss an issue, you may meet with city council members or appropriate staff members before the public hearing. And you may provide a written statement for a hearing. You may read your entire statement or summarize it with the 3-minute limit, and you can provide a copy of that written statement to the city recorder, who will make copies for the city council. However, that will not be included in the minutes of the meeting. So with that, we will open up the public hearing. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing and we can commence the council discussion on this issue. Any input on this, council?
Alan, I just want to say thank you for the itemized list. So everything from that list is reflected in the spreadsheet in column G. Is that? I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. Okay.
Yes, the vast majority, if it's a budget adjustment. If we're creating a new line, you'll see over on the far left, that will be, obviously, it'll go across all of the different, the entire row. It'll create an entire new line. So I'm trying to think of one of them that we create. I can't think off the top of my head. But as you go through here, well, I can. If we go over here
Like
to,
code cert and code enforcement?
yeah, code enforcement, or if I just go over here to emergency management, lines 31, 32, and 33, those are the new lines. So they're entirely new lines. And then as Kenny pointed out, in column G, that's where that adjustment would be made. And so it's fantastic the way that Scott set up these budget revisions and changes is that I mean, in the past, there's always been notions that the city just goes around and changes the budget willy-nilly. We don't. We just put these recommended changes, or the department heads put in recommended changes, and then those are not approved or enacted until the city council has a chance to look at them.
This is so well done. So well done.
Is there anywhere in the spreadsheet that shows kind of a roll-up of the total impact, both on the revenue and the expense side for these suggested changes?
You wouldn't see, you'd see at the bottom that change, so that 3,700 you see right below there.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the shown in that particular budget, which goes down to the expense. The only thing that you could take a look at would be some of the overall budget sheets. So if you go to like the 2025 RO, that's the first revision balance, you go through and see if there's a significant change in that. But none of these would be a massive change. I'll just tell you that up front. But if there is one, and there very well could be, and there usually is at the end of the year budget revisions, we need to really point those out. There's things that could be reduced and increased to really do that. And Scott's been great at that because, as we've mentioned, we had 1 finding a year or 0 findings a year for the past several years. That's because at the end of the year, those adjustments are made, and people are able to stay within budget. And each year it's fine-tuned.
Okay. Any other discussion on those specific budget edits? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve the resolution changing or revising the 2025 municipal budget.
Okay, motion by Buzzy,
Second.
second by Emily. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to consider an ordinance amending the city's drinking water source protection plan. Jordan, you're on this one?
You got it.
Okay.
So every couple of years, we update our source protection plans. These apply to the 7 wells within our city. Basically, what it does is we take a look at the well and how many areas impact our wells directly. And the state comes out every so often with new definitions and new requirements. And so we just update them, every so often. We have to at a minimum every 5 years. We've been trying to do 3 to 5. So if you go through these, basically what we've done is we've updated a lot of the definitions, and then we went through and updated per state code some of the requirements that are in place for like a sewer line in zone 2, what it can be made of, and some of the building constrictions that are in those zones and what you can and cannot do. So that's really what this update is for.
Simple clarification too. I don't know if there's a map in here, but each well has a zone that's really designated by working with an engineering firm and with our staff of how the water actually gets to the well. So they're each different around each well. The zone 1 is the area immediately around the well, and then zone 2 has a little bit lesser restrictions, but still there are restrictions that goes out a certain distance, usually a few hundred yards around the well for zone 2.
Does this, oh, sorry, go ahead. Emily.
Sorry, I only have one question. On page 10, this will be number 3, all zones. Yep, keep going down. It's 3D. It says, I think you mean the very first line is like septic tanks / drain field systems in zones 2, 3, and 4 on property within 300 feet of the city sewers lines. I think you want to say are not allowed, or like, I think we're missing some words in there. Like, because it says, the next line is like septic tanks on property farther than 300 feet may be considered by the city staff upon review. And I just wondered if maybe
Some more clarity.
that was just a line I didn't quite understand.
I think what you're asking is what it's talking about is if you're in zone 2, 3, or 4 and you're within 300 feet of a sewer line, there's different codes that attach to that. You have to tie into the sewer line, but septic tanks are a different thing and they have to be outside of the 300 feet.
Yeah, I'm just saying, okay, I guess when I read that sentence, I was like, so septic tanks and drain systems in zones 2, 3, and 4 on property within 300 feet of the sewage center lines.
Oh,
It doesn't
it.
say like,
Yeah.
they're not allowed. Sorry,
No,
that
I
was
get
it. I just wasn't quite sure if that was supposed to be added.
More clarity.
So does that need to change? Sorry, I'm just reading above.
I can't, I'm having a hard time figuring out if it
I-
does.
I think you have to go up to the
So
previous
it,
page.
yeah,
in
D
where
says
it says
prohibited.
Okay,
use.
thank you.
'cause,
I'm
yeah, you
sorry.
can
That's where I
have
was getting
in all
confused.
zones. Right.
It's really hard because the tabs don't go in far enough. I had to
Sorry,
look up
that's,
above.
maybe that's, okay, it is, you are correct. The prohibited uses, I thought that those were separate at that point.
Yeah. Sorry.
Excuse me.
No, that's okay.
Very
That's
confusing.
It's a good
impressive.
question. I was just curious, does this, is this informed at all by our
I know it
water
sounds dumb. I
plan?
do actually read this.
So not directly. So how this works is basically it looks at, like Alan mentioned, the zones of influence on a well. So it's just protecting the water in the ground. So our water master plan talks more about water availability, how we get it to places. This is basically just protecting what we currently have in the ground. So
Okay.
they kind of coordinate, but this one is more just to protect our wells.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve an ordinance amending the city's drinking water source protection plan.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Kenny. Any discussion on this? Then, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Next, we'll consider a resolution updating the North Logan City Design Standards Technical Manual. Is this Alan?
This is Jordan.
Jordan.
I can't take any credit for this, but I put this on the agenda thinking that I'll push Jordan. He'll get everything done as far as the documentation and everything else, which he did. Hats off to him. However, we still don't have all of the designs from the design engineer, which is another third-party engineer. Jones and DeMille do our DSTM, Design Standards Technical Manual, for us. I would not recommend approving it tonight until we receive all of those drawings and specifications from them. However, Jordan has really accomplished his end, so hats off to him. You can go through this though, just to give an overview. So we'll bring this back before you again on February 5th at that council meeting.
Yeah, so some of the things, if you want to click on the DSTM update sheet, you guys can look through that. Those are the updates that we're looking at doing right now. So as you guys remember, was it a year ago, we did the full DSTM redo with Jones and Mill, like he mentioned. And as we did that, there's always things that need changed and adjusted. Some of just the big ones are just like street lighting requirements. We're going to change those now that Rocky Mountain Power offers some very good LED lighting options for much cheaper. We're looking at going with that direction. And then
He needs to specify, when we started this process, Jordan had to really do a lot of homework because we wanted to push for LED lights throughout the community. And at the time, Rocky Mountain Power did not offer an LED light. But since then, they've really come to the table and they've provided several different options for LED lighting throughout the community. So this coincides with that.
Yeah. They now offer a lot of dark sky compliant lighting. It's a lot better. It's a lot cheaper for the city. So they're promoting that a lot. And so that's one of the big changes. There's some changes for Appendix D, adding that to our city code. And then a lot of these are just details on like drawings and cul-de-sac designs, road profiles. So it's a lot of nitty gritty. But like Alan mentioned, we'll get these all drawn up into the DSTMs and we'll bring it back so you guys can see the changes.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Jordan? We'll obviously have the ability to discuss this further in the future.
We have to formally table or no? Since it's
I
on the
don't think
agenda.
you have to formally
Okay.
table it.
Okay.
I only play an attorney on TV.
I think it's fine as long, like, because I think you formally table it if you're acting in opposition to like approving it, like if there's some other, so,
Learn something new every day.
okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, then, and Jordan, great work on that. Let's move on to our city council work session items. We'll begin with discussion regarding our 2025 strategic directives.
I can just give an introduction to this and
That
we can
sounds
go
great.
down through it. So what you're seeing is kind of a compilation. A few years ago, the city council and the mayor went a little bit more aggressive than in the past. In the past, we had like 2 or 3 goals. But these are a fancy way of saying goals. As you look down through here, they're kind of broken out. I still need to organize them a little bit better. But it gives a lot more as you go down through here. You see a lot more emphasis on communication. You're already number 1, but might as well go above and beyond at this point. And really get get anything we can out to the citizenry of the community, the newsletter, meetings, how can we do those better? Citizen advisory committees, we can go over that at the bottom. And that's probably a main focus that we should talk about tonight, assignments on those committees. Then like social media, long-term growth and community development. Obviously those are all in the works right now, everything that you see down through there. Like economic growth, obviously there's several things that took place this year and that are coming up. Water, it's been a huge year of discussion and moving things forward. I mean, probably more than in the history of North Logan, except for the original creation of North Logan City in 1934. This is probably the second most year this year of things that we've done for water. City Center, obviously, Scott Burke's working through that. Trails, a huge emphasis. But anyhow, as I'm jumping down through these are just some of the categories. And what I've done is I've compiled all of the city council goals, the mayor's goals, and things and just put them under one so that they are the goals of the entire city. What we do is we take those and then we try to tie them into action items. We probably need to do a better job of that. So that's how we accomplish a lot of these items, following the directives of the city council. You kind of set the direction of the ship and then we need to accomplish those things. Anyway, but looking down through here, there's several different categories. And a lot of things are the same. Sorry, this ultra confusing color palette though that we have here, the symbology is yellow is we're probably in the works on it. We've started things, we've accomplished several things, but we still need to do more. Orange is we haven't really started them. Those are still just things that we've maybe done a little bit on, but really haven't accomplished enough. Green, they're highlighted, but that's kind of dangerous. We've accomplished each of those items, but maybe we can leave them on there so we continue to do those things if they're things that we should leave on there. Now, usually you have 5 or 6 goals like we used to do back in the day to accomplish them, but we can accomplish more. So might as well leave them all on there. We can, like Mark recommended, tie them into each meeting. And I can do a better job of that, of just updating and working with the department heads as well.
Okay. Do we want to just maybe go through and just have you guys individually just talk about maybe a few of the suggestions that you guys gave to Alan, and maybe we can discuss those? And Kenny, do you want to start?
Yeah, I don't think I provided any specific suggestions, just input on some. Obviously, wrapping up the general plan was kind of on the top of my thought process. And yeah, I think that was, I don't know that I provide any specific, but I was a little, I wasn't sure. Some of these aren't really phrased as goals as much as open-ended questions or something like that. So I wasn't totally sure what the scope of some of these, would be.
I think it's pretty broad, right? Like, so at least my familiarity is that when I started my term as mayor, I just kind of went category by category and said, just generally kind of things, even if it was just things like decorum in the meetings, for instance. Just things like just overarching goals that that we want to meet. So I think then from there, I think we want them to be pretty broad, and then we can maybe work with staff to come up with really specific ways of accomplishing those. So like one of those, just for example, is increasing transparency in our city. And I think that has a ton of sub goals, right? Like that's the overarching strategic directive. And then maybe we can just come up with specifics in doing that. So I don't think that this is the end point of getting input from the council on this. So I would love if you guys think of, broader things that we need to consider. I think it's really great to have a fresh perspective on those. I don't want to get too entrenched in what we're doing, that we don't consider things that, like, I think about it all the time. The 3-minute change to the public hearing, I think, is a really great one, and not banking time. Like, so just things like that come up. I think this is always an open discussion. So if you guys, as a result of going to the Utah League of Cities and Towns, or even just problems that arise or things that you see that we need to do, we can always add to this. So Emily, do you have anything specific that you want to talk about?
I would love to see, one thing I think would be really great for us to do is, again, I think Mark is the one who brought it up first, is I'd love to see people seeing that, like, this is why we talk about the action items and maybe tying those more directly together. And that's it. Because quite frankly, I don't have any other good ideas beyond the ones that the mayor presented and, other people have given here. These all kind of align with where I'm at.
I think one thing that Emily has been strategic at is when you go through these items, one of the recommendations, I don't know who it was from, I believe the mayor, I think it's recommended by multiple individuals, was developing a better frequently asked questions list, because there are frequently asked questions. And the council may be key to that, because the way we try to compile those is we basically get with the receptionist at the front desk, but that's a small subset of the community, of people that come to the desk and ask questions. You guys are probably hearing more questions that we don't hear. And so if you hear questions or things that we could do better, I think one thing that Emily brought up at one time was, we didn't even notice, on a mobile device, it's nearly impossible to go in and say, I want to report a concern or a work order item or something else in the city. It's very difficult on our current website. It's very easy on a desktop, but very difficult on a mobile device. And things like that we need to know. And we don't know about them unless you guys tell us. And so as you hear those items, I think getting with the mayor, we can try and compile that frequently asked questions list one by one.
Yeah. And Emily, one thing that I think you did a really great job is the relationship between the city council and the planning commission. So that was like a step up, I think, from before you were here. So I think it happens naturally. I think that just annually is a good time to really discuss those. So, okay, thanks, Joni. Thank you, Emily. Joni, do you have some?
So one of the things when I first got involved was I recognized I needed a lot of help, before I was elected, with the growth that was happening and clients coming in. And so I want to just say, I think the website for the North Logan has been wonderful. So that was nice to see that improved. I think you're involved in that. I would love to see these seats full. So I don't know if I champion all of you to just say, bring a friend or at least a spouse or somebody to sit in here. So
Joni, you might need to manufacture some drama.
Yeah,
because I was
I
gonna
know.
say.
Always thought no news is good. So
I know,
Oh,
it's
it's
true.
just,
It does make me sad to see nobody here.
no one's here. We had a
Especially when
public,
we had a budget thing, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people who feel like we're trying to hide the budget.
Yeah,
And this would
like
be a
you.
great example of like,
yeah.
But can I give you a bright side of this? So for the first time ever, we posted a live link on the city's Facebook page. So I don't know if we'll get more people virtually, but that was a goal of these new offices, is to just make it more technologically available to people.
well, and hopefully the sound will work, because that is the biggest complaint I've gotten is people are like, on the broadcast, the sound is wonky as
Yeah.
heck. So whatever we can do, I mean, if we need to turn these off if we're not speaking, just that's the only complaint I've ever gotten. And I
yeah,
feel bad.
I've tried to log in remotely before and ended up calling the mayor's phone to get the audio to work. But
Yeah.
Alan, do we track stats on participants online?
We don't.
You can look at
But
views.
YouTube does, it does
Fine.
record that, how many participants
yeah.
were in each meeting.
But in as far as real-time viewers, is there a way to see that information?
We could look right now and we
Okay.
can look back in the past, how many viewers came to each of these.
We currently have 3, one of which is Eric Peterson, so.
And he's not even watching.
He's just
I
checking in on
guarantee
you.
it. The other one's that bot.
Just to see if I am where I say I am.
I mean,
So-
just devil's advocate a little bit on this. If you've watched any of the meetings around the valley the past few months, when the rooms are full, it's because some drama is going on.
Yeah,
When they're
yeah.
not, people are content. What I'm learning in 7 years now is that we hear from a very small few, and by and large, the majority are pretty happy with the way things are going, and hence they don't feel like they need to participate, which, you know, before I was on council, I felt the same way. Like, not a whole lot to complain about. So there might be may not be terrible that the room's not full, you know?
That's very true what Buzzy just brought up. That's one thing. And you know, you're being transparent, case in point tonight. But also when we've got like a maybe heated item or something like a development coming in, which don't come before the city council very often. Now they go before the planning commission. If you go online, there will be a few more people at those meetings. With that ability. And again, we started during COVID and we were the only city in the valley doing live stream meetings. And I think now we're one of 2, maybe 3 in the valley that still do a live stream link. And there was some hesitancy at the first of that. The council members didn't really like it. They were hesitant to speak. But really just having that gives those people gives those people an opportunity to come and watch.
Yeah, I think it's just the availability, right? Like, I'm posting city council previews on my page. I'm also reposting them through the cities. So, and then I'll start doing more recaps so that people know what happened. But, you know, I think just making it available, you know, getting that information out is really what we can do, you know? And I think Buzzy's right. It's when people are mad that you start to see a lotat of people, so.
Yeah, I don't blame people for not wanting to sit through these meetings.
I mean,
Yeah.
We're
We
not
have
that
fun.
exciting of a group. We're nice, but
Okay, well, I still want to see a few more here in the front, so I'm going to invite.
invite some friends for
We're
sure.
gonna invite, we're
Yeah.
gonna
Some
invite.
scout groups or something.
Yep,
Did you have some more?
I have a list.
Okay.
Yes, so I sit on a committee and it has some pretty amazing people from the community and we're shining. So I'm hoping to get like 1 or 2 of you that will come to some of these meetings. I know we have to have, you know, we have a quorum there, but their complaint in the valley is that they want to create a better image. They want to build better product. They want something that's going to last more than the few cycles that you will with just a production built. Call them army barracks, and that's kind of the thought that everybody's having is we want to get away from the army barracks. So I said, it is really hard to enforce the design on it, but we would love to get more active people in bringing the developers in who will create those long-term. We're kind of pushing in towards the walkable communities. So you're going to hear probably a little bit more of that because of the people that are on the committee. But just to kind of give you a heads up, we are trying to think long-term for our growth, and you've got some pretty passionate people on the committee, more so than even me. So it's fun. I love being a part of it. We want to have North Logan obviously first because we have somebody that loves that. So we want to help him achieve that. But like even on our gateway, it'd be great to say North Logan has such an awesome gateway. And when I drive through here, I brought a couple of developers through and we drive through there and I'm just going, I think we could maybe come up even just plant some trees there. And I'm happy to get a shovel in the spring and start planting some trees, but just something to make North Logan stand. And I know we've been discussing it. So that's kind of my thing that I would love to, as I'm serving on the end of my term here, is just making sure that we have something that really makes us still continue to stand out that way.
Alan, she walked right into that one, didn't one thing that I've added to this list or re-added is to really double down on some wayfinding signs. So we have the opportunity with the new city offices and the opportunity afforded to us by drivers who hit our old signs. We have the opportunity to replace those. So what I've been trying to do with Alan's help is to really, if the buck stops with me, then a lot of things won't get done because I kind of am putting out fires, but me and Chief Thompson. But I think like that's one that I would love for you to do, Joni, is to really look into that and really like figure out what, how those wayfinding signs really signal to people who go into our community, what we're about. So.
In a way too, that we're not just, I mean, you go into Vegas, wow, there's so much stuff trying to attract your attention. So we don't want to cause any accidents for, our police chief to have to go take care of, but definitely something where you notice and it's classy and it fits the community feel. So,
yeah, so we'll talk more about that, but that'd be really great.
We want to, yeah. So moving on,
It says,
growth, planning for growth too. I'd love to be able to help in that area as well, in a good way. I have to be very careful because of what I do for a living. So I have told a couple of people, which has cost me, I'm going to tell you, financially, I probably could do very well. But I have definitely put my stop in that I'm only going to give people the recommendation to call certain other people that I don't financially gain from. So if you hear my name out there with a few subdivisions, I am telling them I'm not for hire. I'll give you some advice. I'll give you people that you can talk to, but I would love to make sure that we are planning for good growth.
I like that.
Yeah, smart growth.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's what
All
I
right.
have.
Thanks, Joni. And buckle up during this legislative session because we are forced to be kind of reactive with what comes down from the state. All right, Buzzy.
Yeah, just some thoughts actually. When you sent this email out last week, Alan, I was looking through how much of this was added over the last 3 to 4 years. And at the time that a lot of this was added, not fully understanding the tail and then the lead time to get through a lot of this. And then I got really leery about really thinking about adding anything else and more around the focus of bringing so much of this to completion. So I think, just the highlight tonight that you've been giving us on, let's use 2500 North, 800 East. I mean, that roundabout came into play like 4 years ago. Maybe it was even before. It was forever.
2017
Yeah.
is when that discussion.
Also 8 years.
2008 is when it started formally. And then 2017 is when we started buckling down to receive the funding for that and doing engineering studies.
So I think, looking at 2025, there's this opportunity to bring the economic growth that we envision west of Maine to a reality. There's the opportunity to improve the roads with the roundabouts that have been planned for years. There's the opportunity to get the Bonneville Shoreline Trail finally to a state of near completion. This is the year where I think all of the payoff maybe happens. So I'm a little hesitant to really go big on strategic initiatives this year, unless, something came to mind that we would kick off at a later time. But I think this is the year where we, hopefully 1 year from now, we're looking back and saying, man, there were 8 or 10 major things there that are done or on the final steps, including all the water that we're going to talk about shortly too, Jordan, right? Like we've talked about this again for another 7, 8 years plus longer. And these things are coming to reality real quick. So I don't really want to add anything. I want to see that stuff get done and checked off, then on to the next phase of life for the city.
Yeah, I think that's great, Buzzy. And I think that has been a really gratifying thing to look at the strategic directives that we've accomplished, because there's some really big hurdles. Just the building itself is a big one. Anyway, we've just had some really big things that are really once in a lifetime kind of events that have happened over the past 4 years. So
I do have one more on record. The mayor's relationship with the council at the county and the rec center that falls on her shoulders to figure out.
You know,
what is that?
actually
Like,
one
what's
thing. I do feel like we have one thing.
Council strategic initiative.
Number 12, hear from mayor on long-term city issues involving county and state. And she's also
Oh,
on
it
the
is there.
Utah League. I was going to say, I feel like we are asking quite a bit of our mayor. And, okay, never
what
mind.
does Buzzy?
More gas in the tank.
I feel, is there something that we can help take some of those things? Or, I mean, I appreciate it because I know that you're going in with the attitude we need. What can we do to support you though, as
So
a council?
that's super nice. I think that's totally, it's just something that I really feel passionately about, is making sure that we're well represented on, both in North Logan and then on a county level and state level. But I think Al and I have really discussed this two ways to, I'm stating it a little more negatively, where it's like, I'm going to drop the ball, like wayfinding. And we have a few committees that we're kind of thinking about. One of those, Mark, you're back, so I'll break the news while you're here, but one of those is trails, and really that's had fits and starts, but I would love some help with that. And I'm kind of still in that process of going through some of the different things. I've asked Kenny to really look into our relationship with the Youth City Council, because that's been pretty minimal over the last little bit. So I'm going to be looking through, I'm going to try and look at the goals from the council and then look through and say, how can we kind of assign these out? Because North Logan's a little bit different. Hyde Park, they have departments that council members are assigned to and events. And so, but it's been really great. I appreciate you guys talking to Alan, getting prepared on the issues that are going to be on council agendas. I think that's been really, really helpful, so that we're all up to speed on the facts. And so that's super helpful. And then, we'll just kind of see what happens, as this next year progresses, as far as, just issues that come up that are more county and statewide. But I appreciate that. And I think I will take you up on that, Emily. Mark, so we just went down the row of just maybe summarizing some of your strategic directives that you want to see. So if you want to take a minute.
Intentionally avoided. The thoughts that come to my mind the most are the pressures we're going to have from the legislature on development, and they're real. I understand that they're coming from a place that is a real need to deal with housing and the housing costs and having kids. I know it's there, but I don't want to see us lose the ability of citizens to own homes, and finding ways to address that and to deal with the pressures that are going to happen, and be proactive on that, because we will fight a battle every year with the legislature, and they'll keep coming back. It's a seven-headed hydra if we don't address it. So that's my number one concern.
Okay.
They're putting a lot of money out there to try and encourage builders to comment growth needs.
Who's they?
They're funding.
The developers?
No, the state.
Oh,
Yeah, the state's putting a lot of money.
isn't that one and the same? Yeah.
What did you
Boom.
say?
That's on record.
Yeah.
Woo.
Alan and I were thinking the same.
Strike that. Motion to strike that from the official record.
Denied.
Okay, I like that, Mark. That's great. All right, I'll just kind of maybe summarize some of the ones that I emailed to Alan. We talked a long time ago at the beginning of my term about just doing a better job of interacting with the public in general. And so I've made a commitment to do recaps of city council so that people can look and just say, oh, this is, this is what happened at city council. Those will be pretty basic. Let's see, and then putting the live streams on the website. And then we can talk a little bit about, like I said, I'm going to go through and see what citizen advisory committees we need to beef up or add. Let's see. Sorry. So just some maybe a heads up on a few things. So the rec center, the county rec, what's his title? Stephen Nelson.
The Community Development Director for the county, or
Okay.
Development Services Director, they have a different
Yeah,
title.
so he was kind of quarterbacking the feasibility study for the rec center, and then he left. And so I've been talking to the county about making sure that we get that up and going, but the momentum's not there without, some help. Just a brief update on the sales tax issue that the county, what's a nice word to say, but it's looking like there's some proposed legislation that will further define what counties can use that sales tax revenue for. And it's specifically what the proposed verbiage is that they can use it only for capital improvements, so buildings or fleet, but they cannot use it for operating expenses or salaries. So that is currently proposed. I believe it came out of Iron County, which is where they created that public safety exception last year. But I think it's pretty clear that that was never the legislature's intent, for it to supplant a county budget. And so if that passes this session, it would take effect in May. So it'd be before the can spend that money how they were hoping to. So I'll keep you updated on that. The mayors are pretty unified in support of that, at least from the main ones that I've talked to. Let's see. Okay, well, one thing that just a heads up is that I think we're going to be inviting Seth Tate to come talk to us about OPMA, just to make sure that we're in compliance, and maybe talk about some of the more nuanced portions of OPMA, because we all got to be experts on what Open and Public Meetings Act requires for closed sessions, but there are some other things that aren't immediately apparent that I think would be great for a refresher course.
And he's very open, and we reached out to the Utah League first. They have a division that's just dedicated to OPMA. They're tied up right now. It's very busy. Seth said that he can find time in the next few months. We may just need to set a council meeting where we want him to come and give some training.
One of our council meetings, or is this like an outside training or something?
I think we'd have to do it in council meeting.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Sounds
part of it.
Yeah, okay.
Unless you want to come in groups of 2 and
Seth would love it.
No, I'd actually I'd actually love it too, though. This could also be a great opportunity to be like, we all could do this one better. I think there's certain aspects of it that make a lot of sense or easy to remember, and there's lots of aspects that I think could be difficult. So I think in public saying, hey, we could all do better at this, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful, and I think it's always good to just kind of refresh, because even the annual training isn't, you can ace that test, I hope, pretty easily.
Even if Seth does come, does Utah League have some written materials on it that Seth could use and that we could use that may be helpful?
That's a great idea, and I can reach out to them. Kind of the foremost expert on that used to be David Church, who was with the league for so long, and he'd give a presentation on that. It was really funny to watch. I'll just say, certain cities down in Utah County talk about that, and everything they brought up, like Emily was talking about, we can always do better. Their attitude was not that way. They're like, "Can I do this?" And he's like, "No, you're cheating."
How close to the line can I get?
Anytime somebody, and the number of conversations I've been where there's somebody who's like, how close can I get to the line? And it's like, Your questions make me terrified to ever live in your county.
They didn't like to hear that they were cheating. And so, yes, I can look into that, Mark, because it's no use reinventing the wheel if we've already
Yeah.
had endless precedent regarding what can be there and that experience. The biggest questions that usually come up are just questions regarding deliberation, deliberating the public items in public. That's a big question. But along those same lines, it's a question of efficiency with the city. So deliberating the public items, making decisions in these meetings. But also if a citizen has a question, I always say it's the toilet paper principle in Elk Ridge Park. I had a council member who waited 2 weeks to tell me that at one point the toilet paper was out in the Elk Ridge Park restroom. And I just said, you could just tell me that minute that the toilet paper's out.
That's a violation of OPMA.
But it's really just referring things to the staff. And so what things should be in city council, what things should take place in an efficiency method to just get to the staff immediately and say, hey, you guys take care of this. There can be endless dialogue between a staff member and a citizen to handle everything at that point. So kind of that double-edged sword of how do we balance efficiency with taking care of the public items in public.
Understood.
Okay, so we'll continue to work on that, and then I'm just gonna look over the committee assignments and, just look and make sure that those things are working. So let me know if you have input on that as well. Okay, if there's nothing more on the strategic directives, let's move on to updates for the general plan and city center master plan.
Okay, Alan, do you want to just hop in that folder real quick? Let's chat real quick, a couple of upcoming dates. Our hope is to have the city center master plan as well as the general plan draft published to the public tomorrow. We'd hope to have it out a little bit earlier, but we've had some technical issues with the commenting system. So we hope to get that out to the public and put it out there for an open public comment period that will last until the end of the month. So it'll go out tomorrow and be out there until the end of the month. It's a little over 2 weeks. So that'll be our version 3 draft plan. That's been on the website for a little while now, but we want to advertise that to say, hey, this is in a substantially complete form. Take another look, have the public look through it. It'll also include a link to the city center master plan draft. It's a consolidated version of that plan, so it's not overwhelming for them, but both of them will be open for public comment through the end of the month. From there, on Tuesday, February 4th, our 2 steering committees, there's a committee for the general plan and a committee for the city center master plan. They will both convene and review the public comment that is received through that open public comment period. We'll make some final adjustments and edits to those draft plans. And then we'll hold our first public hearing for the general plan with the Planning Commission as a formal hearing, formal consideration on the 6th of February. That's the first public hearing. We've had public open houses and public comment periods and those types of public input throughout the project, but this is a formal hearing in a Planning Commission meeting. So there's a potential recommendation on that date on the 6th, and if it is recommended positively, then it will come to the council for the second meeting in February on the 19th. So that's potential. It might be into into March, but we'll see if the Planning Commission is comfortable after that first.
And that's on both the general and the city center?
Correct. Yeah, we'll consider them as the general plan, with the city center being a specific element of that.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So those you'll see in your folder there. I've added folders for the draft general plan as well as the city center master plan. So if you guys want to take a look at that, you can go now, but it will go out to the public formally tomorrow.
I've had some people ask about when it will, and I've referred to the website. I was looking at it earlier this week. And are you trying to do some changes to the website? Because it was giving me some technical.
Yeah, so once we issue it out to the public, the links will be updated on the website, so it's easier for the folks to see. We'll move them up to the top of the website. Right now, I have to scroll down just a little bit. We'll put them top and center. There's going to be mass communication going out through our Parliament system, all of our social media channels, the library listserv, and the recreation listserv. So there's going to be a lot of communication going out to the public. And then we'll also do maybe a mid public comment period reminder, maybe a week from tomorrow, just to say, hey, this is out there. Don't forget, you have one more week to take a look. And hopefully folks with 2 weeks give them plenty of time to take a look and provide any final comments they may have. So that's kind of the timeline ahead of us. When and if these plans are adopted, whether that's towards the end of February or early March, the next step in the process or the project is to go through a lot of code updates to implement the policies that are called out in the general plan. And the Planning Commission will start looking at various packets of red lines and code updates between March and June. And we'll have kind of some updates coming to City Council in our code to implement the general plan. So we're starting to set our gaze to implementation and code codification updates. Having the plans adopted is great, but they're not really usable until we do some code adjustments. So that's the next step. So that's kind of where we're at, where we're going. There's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. We're getting excited to get these adopted.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Thanks so much, Scott.
Yep.
Okay, let's get updates regarding North Logan's water capital improvement projects.
All right. Just to start off, one of the big things that came through, you guys probably saw it was just before Christmas. We were awarded the BOR grant for $400,000 to help with design. And so that was a huge grant that came through. That'll help us a lot with our tank and our well and water line. So that's a big one. Another big one that you're going to see, so the treatment plant, we did award DWA with that, with the bid for the contact chamber. They're going to begin construction on March 1st, and that's over at the treatment plant. And then the 4 million gallon tank is with the Division of Drinking Water now. Buzz, you may have seen we dug some big trenches up by your house. That was, the Division of Drinking Water made us look for fault lines because there is one identified in that area, so we had to make sure it wasn't where we were putting the tank.
Did you find it?
We did not, which is good. So it's above it.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
It's right
I know
through
where you're
your
Runs
going.
right through your house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
funny guy over here.
So yeah, so we did that and it came back clean. So the Division of Drinking Water is reviewing the designs for the tank right now. And we plan to go out to bid on that as soon as they're done. And so they anticipate by the end of January, early February, it'll go out to bid. And they anticipate construction beginning in June. So those are our big ones right now.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Updates on the Civic Center. It's exciting to see that they've started with the canopy out there.
Yeah, so the canopy across the front of the community center is in, at least the vast majority of it. Just going through general updates, you can see all the Fox blocks going in. That's the form that have the insulation built into it. They're wrapping up the final portions on this east portion of the community center, closest to the city office, right over here. And that portion has the stage and the mechanical room, and that portion will go in soon. And once all of those are poured, they'll put the roof across the top. They're also putting conduit in the walls as they go through that process. It's a really unique way to build those walls, very affordable, very costly savings method. They're also putting conduits and everything all throughout the entire parking lot, the future parking lot, the area around the buildings. And so there's a lot of progress right now. The other thing that we're looking into, we're having an intern work on the brochure that we're going to use when we go out and start soliciting funds. So we kind of put together a strategic plan to go out and solicit funds and funding for the remaining portion of that budget for that building. They'll have categories of donation, naming rooms, naming specific items on a wall. There'll be a donor wall within that building. So it's more of a community buy-in for that library and community center. But those are the items coming up in the next little bit.
Okay.
Can you remind me when we're going to solicit people for those donations for the wall?
We're asking people in Wildercrest right now.
Well, I was asking for a reason. There's some interest too that I've talked to. I just couldn't remember when we were going to formally have a
It's
process
probably
for
as soon as
that.
that brochure is done. That brochure will
We're still waiting
show
for
the
brochure.
wall.
Okay.
But it's
We'll start
imminent.
reaching out. Yep.
Okay.
You didn't even bat an eye when I said people in Wildercrest, so thank you.
Well,
I know.
I mean,
Okay,
Can't
let's get our reports. Jordan, do you have anything? Okay, Scott. Okay, Marie, I know.
your turn.
Mayor's message, yeah. Scott? Alan?
Just some of the upcoming events. going down through here, obviously we had the Connect Transit grand opening. That was very well attended. To the
Who
Valley
made it to that from the council here?
Which
Mayor.
one?
I think just the
Connect?
mayor went, which thank
Oh.
goodness
Yeah.
she did.
Okay.
And Alan.
Yeah, it
Thank
went
you,
well.
guys.
It was good. We had representatives from National Transit and from Blakemore. Blakemore was there in attendance, so it went really well. It's great to have that in our community as well, that hub for transit. Just going down through here, the Jane Austen Ball is coming up. If you have interest in that, they have a lot of interest, more than they've had in previous years. So each year it builds up more and more. They have a cap of like 170 or 200, I think, is the cap on the attendance in that. That's great to see that support for the library event. Obviously, I have a basketball skills challenge, employee appreciation lunch is coming up. The reason I put that on there is because we have training about once or twice a month for the city staff. We get together for a few items. That one is for everyone, including the city council and mayor. So just put that on your docket for March 19th at noon. And that'll be the kind of the second employee appreciation.
For how long? Noon
As
to-
long as you would like, but it's probably just like noon to 1 is usually the length or the duration of that. 1:30 at the
Unless I
longest.
start chatting. Okay.
Where?
Anywho,
At the HSC?
at the HSC, 80 to 90% sure it's at the HSC. And sometimes we'll have an activity afterwards out on the field if it's available. And so it's tough this time of year to get into our own building. Regardless, those are the main things coming up. Obviously, Easter egg hunt, soapbox derby, Utah League. So just keep those things on your docket because those are coming up. Utah League is April 16th through 18th. So if you want to roughly pencil that in, that's the one down in St. George for the spring conference. If you are interested, you could let Scott know and we could start getting that lined up.
Okay, thanks, Alan. All right, then anything from council before we adjourn for just a 5-minute recess and then go into closed session? So, okay, then I entertain that motion for a recess plus closed session.
I motion that we move to a recess for 5 minutes before we move to a closed session to discuss the acquisition of real property and pending litigation.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Do we need to state the location?
I'll second.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Where we move to the
conference room.
conference room to have our closed session to once again discuss the acquisition of real property and pending litigation.
Okay, motion by
Say as
Emily,
text.
Second.
second by Mark. Any discussion? All in favor? Do we have to
Aye.
do roll call?
Aye.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
oh,
think
yeah,
we
thought
need to do
did
it.
for this.
Okay,
Roll call it.
Mark? I'll just roll call. Aye. Okay, Kenny,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Joni,
Aye.
Yeah,
Fuzzy.
aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. 5-minute recess. Okay.